Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be covering Alteryx for Excel users. I'm Sohel Ghani, I'm from the Information Lab. Originally this was delivered by Corinna from Till Germany at the Inspire conference. Hopefully I do her justice. So today I'm going to be covering understanding data quality issues, how to create new fields with formulas, how to create a join, aggregating your data, and building a table within Alteryx so you can also see its reporting capabilities. If you have any questions at all during the session, write them down in the chat. Sophie is also here and she'll be able to let me know if you guys have any questions and I can answer them. So these are always the main tools that you guys will often be using when utilizing Alteryx, apart from input and output tools, which will definitely be the most popular tool. But the browse tool, this is a really cool tool because it lets you know if you have issues, data quality issues within your data set. For example, like what is the percentage of fields that are null within your data set? Or do you have trailing space? Or is there blank space in your data set? So this is all about letting you know it will give you that profiling capability of looking at different columns and letting you know, oh, for example, like 25% of your columns is null. The data cleanse tool, that's the best tool to like quickly fix some data quality issues. Like let's say you've got white space, or let's say you're joining two data sets together on a string field, and in one of them it's capital letters and the other one it's lowercase. This will let you quickly convert that. And you can also convert your null values into zeros. It will remove punctuation. It's your data cleansing tool. It cleanses your data. You can use the unique tool or the Summarise tool to get rid of duplicates. So a lot of the time, especially when you're joining data, you may end up with duplicate records, and that really depends on your data structure. So the unique tool will allow you to get rid of any kind of duplications that you have, and it will also have two anchors where, let me show you in Alteryx right now. So here, if I search for unique, you can see that I end up with two anchors, one called unique, one called U and one called D. So you will export your unique rows, and then D will show you how many duplicate rows that you have. And from there, you can select what columns you want your data set to be unique by. What's very important when understanding Alteryx and how to use it is data structure. A lot of the time in Alteryx, you predominantly use it as a way to read your data and do Tableau prep. Do Alteryx prep and prep your data in terms of like whether you want to visualize it or whether you want to store it in a database. So a lot of the time, especially if you're familiar with Excel, you're going to get data that looks in this format. Your first row is going to be some kind of header names, and then every column will be a unique date part. For example, this is quarter, and then every row will be a unique measure. This will cause a lot of problems. Firstly, in Alteryx, it will take your header names from the first row of your table. So if your header name is not your actual column names, this will cause problems in being able to read how many columns do you actually have and being able to understand how to name your headers. So another thing is as well is that each quarter is a separate column. So this is going for this long and wide structure, which in Alteryx is great, but within any, it will be great because then you have to pivot it. Because what you want to do is you want each row to be a unique row that represents something differently. So your ideal format will be something like this, where your quarters your dates will be one date field. So then each row will be a different date. And then each column represents a unique dimension, whether that's your date field and then your different measure fields. In this example, it's sales, profit, and orders. And Alteryx will let you do that where we're flipping around your table. So instead of it having this long and wide format, it will have this tall and thin format, which will make it easier to create calculations. In the formula tool, it will make it easy as well to aggregate your data. And also if you want to use the reporting function, this is the ideal format for you to be able to use that. So this is ideally an example of what your final form of your data structure should look like. And the reason why we would want it like this is if, for example, we have another column called profit and we've got another column called sales and we want to calculate profit ratio, how formulas work in Alteryx is that they work on a row by row basis. So if you have it in this format, you won't be able to work out profit ratio because it's a lot more complicated. Whereas if you have it in different columns, you can, because Alteryx works in a row by row basis, you can just easily tell it, okay, this row divided by this row, and then give me the profit ratio, which will be a separate column. So it's all about making your data structure more machine friendly and not human friendly. And that can result in powerful analysis and charts. So here you can see that we're breaking it up by our dimensions and by our measures. Date is kind of a special one because within your date column, you'll format this to be a date field within Alteryx, and date fields have specific formulas as well for them, and they function in a different way. So you've got, let's say, a date pass formula and a date div formula. They work differently compared to like how you would work out with another different formula, like for example, working out profit ratio. With date formulas, they have their own inbuilt Alteryx functions. So here I've got the interface of a Summarise tool. So a Summarise tool is, let me show you here. It's this one here. And this is a really popular tool for aggregating your data. So in the interface here, you can see that here in the type, you've got, it identifies whether it's a measure or whether it's a string field. So double means it's a measure. And that goes up to like decimal places, and then string, it's a string field, and then date, opened and closed are date fields. And this is really important because in the group by function, let's say you've got a measure, it will give you the option to sum, to get the average, whatever measure, however you want to aggregate your measure fields. Whereas you can't sum up a string field. And this is also important because you can't use the sum option in a formula. So if you want to work out the sum of something, you're always going to have to use Summarise tool to aggregate your data in that way. And here, straight away, it's all about like, I've only included company name and ticket ID in this example. So as you can see from that output, then I'll only get that information and not all the other fields that are listed here. So when aggregating, you always need to think about what do you want your data structure to look like afterwards? What do you want each row to represent? And you'll find that that's very common within Alteryx to always be asking yourself, how do I want my data structure to look like? How do I want each row to look like? So we're gonna work through an Alteryx workflow. So this is our completed version. So this is what we're gonna be building together. So here, let me just quickly run this. I've got two input files where I've got ticket data. So here you can see this is my data structure, I've got, so here it will tell me how many columns I have. So I've got 7 columns, and in total I've got 1,000 rows. Always look at how many records you have. That represents how many rows you have, and that will be very important for when you start doing a join. And a join is the same thing as doing a VLOOKUP. So if I type here in the search VLOOKUP, you can see straight away join pops up because it functions in the same way. So sometimes that might cause duplicates, which is why your record ID is really important. And then here I can see it's all green. You can see that thin line here, that's green. But here it's telling me 1.5% of my closed column is null and 98% of it is okay. So what I can do as well is I can bring my browse tool here, and let me just connect my input with my browse tool, just like this. And now when I run it, so another thing that I should mention is that every time you add a new tool, if you want to be able to see the output of that new tool, you need to press the run button. So the run button is here, or you can use the shortcut Control R. So here's my browse, and then I can see here, this is my data quality. My data quality is great. It's at 100%. It's amazing. And then it will tell you, it will give you a quick profile to tell you what's going on with your data set. So how many so I've got 1,000 uniques, which means I don't have any duplicate rows, which is great. And it will show me also what my longest value is and what my shortest value is. So now we have to prep this data to also be able to join it to this one here. So here I've got client ID, client name, and the agreed time of how long a ticket should take. So here I don't have a field called company name, as you can see from my field headers. What I do have is I have the company name right next to the ticket ID, but I want to pass that out because it needs to be a separate column so I can then join to this column here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the pass tool. So the pass tool lets you create new columns or new rows depending on what your delimiter is. And what a delimiter is, it's what you decide to split your column by. So as I can see here, my delimiter in this scenario is going to be that backslash here, because I want the ticket ID to be one column, but anything after the ticket ID, I want that to be a separate column. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drag text to columns here, and let me connect it. And now I'm going to specify that my delimiter is a backslash and make sure that my column to split is ticket ID. I know that I want 2 columns to be split, so I'm going to reduce this down to 2. And here, if you do want to split to rows, you do have that as an option here as well, in scenarios for when you do want to split to rows instead of splitting to columns. And now I'm going to go Control R. And now straight away I can see that I've got 9 columns. So I've increased by 2. And then what I can see here, column 1 is my ticket ID. It's now a separate column versus here where it was all in one. And now column 2 is my company name. But you can see it's all in red, like that red line. And then I've also got like a red triangle at the end. So when I hover over, it's telling me that I have trailing space. So we're going to clean this up afterwards. But straight away, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename my columns, because calling my column number 1 and number 2, it isn't intuitive at all for anyone who's going to be handed over this work. And also later down the line, let's say I revisit this workflow, I won't remember what column 1 and column 2 is. So here, what I just put in is the select tool. So this here is the select tool. And the select tool lets you rename columns, change your field type, and change the size and assign a description. So if I want to change the type, I can just click on the drop down here. But this is going to stay as a string, so I'm going to keep it as a string. And so I'm going to call number 1 ticket ID. And I'm going to deselect ticket ID because I don't need 2 columns labeled the same way. And I no longer need that column with both ticket ID and company name. And then this column 2 is going to be called company name. And now I want to clean my 2 columns from the training space. So what I'm going to use, like I mentioned before, is the data cleansing tool. And here you can find that under preparation. So I don't know if you noticed, but when you click on the different tabs, they're all colored for a certain reason because they all do similar functions. So these are all my data prep tools. And what's great about it as well is that it's all sorted alphabetically. So I won't get lost in being able to find a specific tool. So here's my data cleansing tool. I'm going to bring that here. And now what I want to do with my data cleansing tool, I just want to select field ticket ID and company name, and I want to get rid of trailing space. I don't have any nulls, so there isn't anything I want to do. So this is really the only option that I want to click here. And now let me run this. So now when I click on the output, you guys can see instead of before where it was all red, I got rid of all my trailing space and now it's all green, which is great because then it will be easier for me to do my join. So now here I've got client name. What I want to do is I want to join my client name to my company name, which in terms, if you guys are Excel users, that will be familiar for you, that would be a VLOOKUP. So just like here, if I type search, VLOOKUP, you can see it's a join. So with a join, let me zoom in. With a join, you've got 2 inputs and you've got 3 outputs. So the inputs is just for you to be able to say, okay, I want this file and this file to connect with each other. So I want to join 2 files together. And now here in the 3 outputs, L stands for left, J stands for join, and R stands for right. So what this will let me know is if I do a join, if anything doesn't join, if let's say, for example, one of the company names in this file doesn't match one of the client names in this file, then it's going to drop out and it's not going to come out of the join. Instead, it will come out in the left output because there isn't a matching name, so there isn't anything to create that match with. So now here, I'm going to select company name and I'm going to select client name. Now, also, if the 2 things that you're doing your VLOOKUP/join with are named the exact same thing, if you click on options, you can deselect duplicate values. So in this scenario, it won't work because client name and company name are both different words. So if I deselect duplicate values, nothing is going to get deselected. So in this case, I'm going to have to manually just deselect client name because I don't want 2 columns to be representing the exact same values. And now I'm going to click run. So now, first thing I like to do is always look at my outputs to see if anything dropped out. So in my left, I've got 0 records, which is great. So it means everything matched from this main file. And in my right output, again, nothing's come out, which means everything matched. So now when I look at my join, I can see straight away everything's joined. I make this a bit smaller. And now I can also see that I've got 1,000 records. So beforehand, I have 1,000 records, and afterwards, I have 1,000 records. So this is important because it tells me straight away that my number of records haven't expanded, which means I don't have duplicate rows, which is great. So it doesn't mean that I have to, my data structure is all in the correct format, and that isn't a problem. Also, the fact that it isn't a less amount of records as well tells me that nothing has dropped out, which is shown in the left output and the right output. So next, I want to be able to see if the time that these tickets are being resolved, does it meet? So here I've got my resolution length. Does it meet the agreed timing that I've got here? So with these tickets, I can see that I've got an open date and I've got a close date, and I've also got how long in days did that ticket close. So based on each company, we have a different agreed length of time that these tickets are supposed to close by, and I want to be able to see did they match or did they not match. So what I can do is I'm going to write a formula using a formula tool. I'm going to bring that here. And what we're going to structure is an if statement. So with an if statement, it always follows a pattern where I'm saying if this condition is being met, then what does that result in? Else, if that condition is not being met, then what happens, and if. So here, firstly, I'm going to create a new column. I'm going to call this column in SLA. And I'm going to write. So straight away, Alteryx, when I type if, let me type it again, you can see that it will then let me know, okay, which one do we want? We've only got two conditions, so I want the first one, and it lets me know the kind of format that I'm supposed to write my formula in. So it acts as some kind of guidance as well. So here, I'm going to start with replacing the C with resolution length in days is less than or equal to SLA agreement. Then we're going to label this within SLA. Else, if that condition isn't being met, which means that resolution length is greater than SLA agreed time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it outside SLA. So now I have my two conditions. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to write a comment. So someone else who looks at this formula knows exactly what it is that it's doing. So it's a good handover tactic. So how you can do this is by adding two backslashes, just like this. And I'm going to write what we're doing here. We're determining so now that I've written it, straight away, someone else who opens up my workbook and looks at my formula will look at this comment and then be like, okay, so this is why she built this formula. So currently, now when I click on the output here, I've got my new column where I can see outside SLA and within SLA. And it works on a row by row basis. So how Alteryx calculates this formula is by looking at this column here. It looks at resolution length, and then it looks at this exact row. So in this example, row 17, and it looks at the resolution length days, and then it will look at the SLA agreement. So my resolution length is 16. The agreed time for how long this ticket should have actually taken is 15, which means it's outside the agreement. So as you can see, formulas in Alteryx work on a row by row basis. So if, for example, let's say I want to do this instead of doing it by each ticket ID. I'd want to do it instead by each system that it's been filed against. What I'll have to do is I'll have to aggregate my data. So if I quickly show you guys how to do that. So this is the Summarise tool. And here, this is my how it was filed against. And let's say I also want to see it by satisfaction. And I want to see it by company name as well. So I'm going to group by. So right now I'm grouping by filed against. I'm grouping by company name. And then here I'm going to group by the resolution length. Or let's say in total, and I want to see my open dates and my close dates. So I'm going to group by these two things as well. And for resolution length, I want to work out the average. And then with SLA length as well, I want to get the average as well. So here, and then we do sum, and then here I can change it to average. So now you can see also in front of my column, what it will add is the word AVG, short for average, to let me know, okay, you're averaging these fields. So now that I've aggregated my data, if I run, first thing we're expecting to see is a lot less number of rows. So, oh wait, okay. Let's say I just want to see by company name and filed against. Okay, so straight away I've got 12 records, and instead of the original 1000. So this goes to show, like, if you do want to work out the average of a total column or the sum of a total column, you're going to have to create a separate stream and aggregate it upwards using the Summarise tool. Does anyone have any questions at this point? Okay, cool. So let's say in this example here, I want to be able to filter, and I want to see how many clients they had their tickets completed outside the agreed time. Because if it's meeting within the agreed time, then that's great. That's something I don't have to worry about. But outside the agreed time, that's definitely something I have to worry about. So what we're going to do here, we're going to filter the data. So here you've got the filter tool, and you've got two outputs, true, and you've got false. So we can do this in several different ways. Let's find the column we created in SLA. So we can put an equals function, and we have to write it exactly like how we write it before, as outside SLA, just like this. And then what I like to notice is the custom filter. It will also write you the formula that you're specifying within the dropdown, but as a formula in itself. So here you can then see what's going on, which is saying in SLA equals outside SLA. And because it's a string, it's putting it in quotation marks. We can also use, in this example, the contains function, select contains, and instead just write outside. We know that the only thing that we want to look at has the word outside written in it, and we don't have anything else in that column that has the word outside. So we can also use this. And again, you can see how you can write a contains formula in that sense. So now when I run, Straight away, if I click the F output, which represents false, I can see 842 tickets because each row is a unique ticket. So I can see 842 out of my original 1,000 tickets have all been performed within the agreed time, which is great news. So now when I go to true, I can see that, okay, I had 158, that all these tickets were closed outside of the agreed time. So this is something that I want to analyze further. So what we're going to do here, we're going to aggregate our data. And we want to see by company, for each company in total, how many tickets were actually closed outside of the agreed time. Because right now, okay, we can tell on a row by row basis exactly what's going on, but we're not going to manually go through every single row. We just want to see, okay, for each company, what exactly is going on. So here in this example, that's where we're going to aggregate again. So I'm going to create the Summarise tool, and what we're going to do is we're going to find company name, and I'm just going to group by this. And ticket ID, I just want to count it. So ticket, I know because of the fact that we know each row is unique, and how we can double check that and confirm it is if we use the unique tool here. So here, if I say, okay, I want to make sure every single ticket ID is a unique ticket ID. And now when I run this, so straight away, I'm going to go to my D output first to see if I've got any duplicates, and I've got 0 duplicates. So straight away now, I know each ticket ID is a unique ticket ID. So now when I go back to aggregating, I can use the count function instead of the count distinct function, because I know every single row is a unique ticket ID. If, for example, let's say every single row is not a unique ticket ID, then in that sense I will use a count distinct function instead. So it will only count distinct ticket IDs instead of counting all my rows. So now straight away I can see, okay, this company, Halverson, comes second with 61 tickets that were closed outside of the agreed time, and Schiller, Lindgren, and Bradkett has 81. Let's say I've got a lot more companies than this, and I want to sort this by descending order, because only having 3 rows, it's really great to see, okay, which one has the most and which one has the least. So what I can do here is I can bring in my sort function, and I can select, I want to sort count descending, and let me run this. So now straight away I've got it sorted by the order of who has the most amount of tickets till who has the least amount of tickets. Okay, so the word count isn't very intuitive at all, and someone might come back to me and be like, the count of what? Like, what does that actually mean? So we'll go back to the Summarize, and you can see here under output field name, I can double click and I can rename this to number of tickets. And now let me rerun this. I'm going to have to change the sort as well. Awesome. So now I've got a new column called number of tickets, which is a lot more intuitive in terms of understanding what this is. So now let's say we want to output this as a table format. So what we're going to do is in Alteryx, you've got the reporting tools which you can utilize. With reporting tools, let's say in the future, I want to output this in a table. And let's say I put this in the schedule and I get this data every single week and I want to be able to email this report on a monthly basis. So people in my company can see how many tickets do we deliver over the agreed time. Maybe we should reevaluate the agreed time. So what we're going to use, we're going to use one of the reporting tools, which is the table one. So here, this is where you do all the formatting of your table. If you're used to another data visualization tool like Power BI or Tableau or even Excel, you'll find that those tools are more intuitive when it comes to creating a table. Like I can show you how to do it now. So here in the table, what we're going to do is we need to, so what this does, this specifies how many columns do we want. Do we want it as a bar or do we just want it as a table? And this is just the width of your columns. And then what you can do is you can also create row rules as well that will specify when a row, I don't know, it's like greater than, let's say, 50. Then we want a background color to be, say, a pink. So you can create conditional formatting in this sense for your table as well. And now we'll just close this. And then what we'll have to do is we have to add a browse tool to be able to see the output of what this report will look like. There isn't much formatting that you can do in the table. It's within Alteryx's limitations. So let's run this. And then I'll click on the browse. And now you can see my table is being rendered. And this is what my table looks like. So I've got my columns, my company name, I've got my number of tickets. You can decide to output this as a PDF or a email in any kind of format that you want. Let's say you do want to add bars. You can just select the bar graph. We want the bars to be number of tickets, and it will only let you select number of tickets because that's the only measure field that you have. So let's say that's why you need to make sure your data types are correct. We're going to want to deselect number of tickets because we don't want this to be a column, and we're going to deselect dynamic or unknown fields. And okay, cool. So this is all correct. And now let's say we're going to rerun this again. And now you guys can see that I'm going to get bars now instead of tables. And you can add number of ticket as a column on top of it, adding it as a bar as well. And when it's a measure, you can also format your measure as well to look a certain way. So let's say we want to add borders and we want to make everything center aligned, and the width we're going to keep it as automatic. Okay. And again, you can also add styling rules as well when it comes to columns as well, when it comes to like replacement text or background color or text color. So you've got these options to also explore. Let's say I want to make the width of my table a bit bigger. And now if I go to my browse, you can see I've got my bars, and now I've got a column, and now I've got little black borders as well here around them for each row. So you can play around with the format function and discover what it is that you want. The final thing that you have to do is you need to choose how you want to render this, like what's your output going to be. So with reporting tools, again, we'll have to go to the reporting tab. And what you always end it with is your render tool here. So we connect this right next to the table one. And let's say you can select here whether you want an Excel file. Whatever output that you want, you kind of specify it here. We can choose a specific output as well, so you're not just limited by the output selections here. Those are mostly temporary, PDFs or PowerPoint. You can even output it as an image or a HTML file. I'm going to choose a specific file. Here then you select the location of where you're going to save it. In my example, I'm just going to leave it on my desktop. And let's say I want it to be an Excel file as well. I'm just going to call this outside SLA. Go save. And my data field is a table, so it remains a table. And that's the only option I'm going to select. And that's the only option I get since the tool before it is a table. And then from that, you can specify the size that you want it to be. So here, let's say I'm going to pick this sizing. I want it to be portrait. Everything's fine. And now when I run this, if I go here, you can see that now it's actually, if I select this option, you can see it's created my file, and I can click on it. And now I've got my file and it's opened. It's opened my Excel file in the exact same format that I've created within the table tool. So, and you can rerun this however you want. And unlike a normal output tool, you're going to have to switch it from create a new output to update existing output. I don't have to do that at all. So let's say I made another change. Instead of a bar graph, I just want tables. And now I decide to rerun it. What I'm going to have to do is, so now I get an error because it can't write. Did I close? Okay. That's because I had the Excel file open. So you always need to have the Excel file that you're writing to closed for it to be able to rewrite it. So now I don't get an error at all. And now it's reopened this. So I can reopen my Excel file that it's created. And I'll be able to see it rewritten in a new format that I want it to be written in. Just like this. That is the end of my demo. I'm able to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Hi, Soho. This is Sophie speaking. We got one question during your demo through from Mart. They were wondering, how can you stop long numbers being turned into scientific numbers when you're changing the format, aside from making sure the long numbers were not recognized as, if there's any way to do it aside from not making sure that you put the numbers in as like a text string to start with, they're not recognized as numbers.
Okay, so what you can do is you can change the size. So here in the select tool, you've got something called size. So the limit to how big anything can be is 255. So what I can do is and also for a double, that's for a string is 255. And for a double, it always goes up to 8 decimal places. So you can edit the size of your field. We can change, like, let's say to a fixed decimal places, and I can make it to be as big as I want. Let's say in this example, I just want to go 40. I can do that as an option. So you can change the size of your field, and then that won't cause it to automatically change into scientific numbers, but it really also depends on how big the field is, because like any tool, Alteryx also has its own limitations. Any other questions?
We haven't had any other questions coming through on the chat yet. So if any, for all the current attendees, if you do have any other questions for Sohai, if you can type them into the chat box for us, then she'll be able to answer them for you. In the meantime, Sohai, if people do want more experience getting used to using Alteryx, what are some ways you could recommend they could do that?
I would definitely recommend going to the weekly challenges. So let me show you now. So also play around with the tools. So even before looking at weekly challenges, what you can do is, let's say for example, I haven't covered multi-row formula tools. They're useful. You're always going to want to use them. They're a lot more complicated. When I click on it, it will have examples of how people have used the tools. So you can go open examples. And if I zoom out, you can see these are all text tools, text input tools that Alteryx have put in the data for. And then when I click run, you can see that they've built different formulas. So let's say in this example, the table looks like this. You know, like in a lot of Excel formats, you'll have this problem where you're merging your column, and instead how Alteryx will read it will read it as one, the first one, and then everything else afterwards within that merged row will all be read as null. So in this example, you're going to be like, okay, I want the ability to drag 2012 down until I reach 2013. And that's where you're going to really want to use the multi-row formula tool. And here you can see Alteryx have written the expression out for you, and they've shown you how to make it work. And they've also written an explanation. So if you click on the open examples for the tools that you're not sure about, they're very useful in seeing different examples of how people are using them and how you're supposed to configure the rules of the tools and stuff like that. Another thing that I would recommend is clicking here on the help. So if I click on this, sorry, my computer is quite slow. But straight away here, it opens to the help section in Alteryx, where it details exactly what this tool is and how you can use it and what the rules for the tool are. And it will also lead you to understanding other tools that are linked to this as well. So this is really helpful and useful for understanding Alteryx further. I would always look at their documentation section. Another thing that you can go to is, if I go to Alteryx. So this is a good way for understanding Alteryx and being able to practice with different examples. Sorry. Let me open this on Google so you can see it a lot better. So here you've got a list of different Alteryx challenges, and you can also filter them. So let's say you're a beginner and you want to practice doing data cleansing. All these challenges are to do with data cleansing. So let's say I select a challenge, you can download them. You can then see also, you can download the start file and then the solution file as well. I would always recommend don't look at the solution until after you've really understood what you're doing. Also, other people have posted their solution, because there's different ways in solving a specific problem in Alteryx, and everyone approaches it differently. So you can also see how other people have approached the problem, how they've solved it, and that's a great way as well to learn. I would also use Google. I Google a lot when I'm stuck on an Alteryx question, and you've got the forums for that. You've got a lot of great people that have written blogs about utilizing Alteryx and how to utilize it. Go on the Information Lab blog and go on the Data School blog. There's a lot of useful resources there concerning how to doing ETL and data prep within Alteryx and how to use specific tools and configure them. Also, we do meetups. So this is the link for our meetup, Talk Data, where we run Alteryx Essentials lessons and Alteryx Advanced sessions that can help you be with like-minded people that are on the same learning journey as you and help you figure out how to utilize Alteryx to its full capabilities. Any other questions?
Thank you so much for that, Zoha. We haven't had any other questions come through on the chat box. So for everyone who's joined in, thank you so much for giving us your time today. And Zoha, thank you so much for presenting this for us.
Thank you.
We'll be running a few more of these webinars coming up in the next few weeks. So please do dial into any of the other ones we are running. And thank you so much for joining. Hope you have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.